So your hospitals in the 1960s. The original purpose of hospitals was to nurse people back to health during their weakest moments. But you recently started to see things from a new perspective. You realize that people are willing to pay a lot of money for their health. When a person or their mother, brother, daughter, grandson's life is on the line, they're willing to pay a lot of cold hard cash. Now there's a business opportunity. So you shift your focus from the public well-being to making money. You had a few different ways of generating revenue, like getting a big check from a philanthropist.
Full-on rapist?
I'm sorry. Did you say you're a full-on rapist?
No. I help people. You know what I mean? I'm a full-in.
Philanthropist?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Or attracting foreign patients to fly in for your cutting-edge health services, also known as medical tourism. But that's just not doing it for you. It's not enough. And if there's one thing we can learn from Standard Oil or Big Tobacco, it's that monopolizing an industry is a great way to start charging whatever you want for your services. Now you may be wondering, isn't it kind of bad to have the goal of inflating the price of medical services for people? Yeah. So in the 1990s, you started a marathon of mergers and acquisitions.
Murders and executions mostly.
Mergers and acquisitions.
And today, the hospital sector accounts for a whopping 6% of America's GDP, or over $1 trillion. And all of that money, all that power over the well-being of the masses, was monopolized. By 2017, around 2/3 of the hospitals in the US have been taken over by a single chain. And just like the monopolies of the past, hospital CEOs and executives are earning higher salaries than ever before, while American citizens are paying higher than ever prices for flat-out bad healthcare. If you've ever wondered how you could create a monopoly for yourself, why not study the one that slipped right under our noses?
Just give me one good reason why I should have Blue Cross hospital medical protection.
You're sick. When you need it, you're better off with Blue Cross.
The first step that took US hospitals from a public good to a profitable corporation was health insurance. It was pitched as a great way to make sure you could afford your medical bills if you got sick. And it started with Blue Cross Blue Shield in the 1930s.
$1 million. That's what the new low-cost major protection plan from non-profit Blue Cross of Southern California could be worth to you. Now, if you already have Blue Cross protection where you work, you never have to worry about being wiped out, forced into debt by hospital and doctor bills.
My husband and I have had Blue Cross and Blue Shield for 33 years, and with a family of 8, it's been a lifesaver.
After that, employers started handing out health insurance too. It was clear that there was a demand in the market, and the healthcare industry noticed. But what started as a way to protect people from the cost of getting hospitalized ended up being the exact reason why hospitals are so hungry for profits today. Exactly like how college tuition skyrocketed after student loans started getting more popular. When you're taken out of the buying process, when all you're worried about is the cost of insurance or the deductible you have to pay, you don't care how much an IV costs, you don't care how much a broken arm costs, my insurance will take care of it. When all you're worried about is how much your monthly payment is going to be to pay off your student loan, you're not as invested in how much a single class or textbook costs. So colleges and hospitals can get away with raising prices because you're not going to notice. And just a few decades later in 1955, the percentage of Americans who had health insurance grew from 10% to more than 60%. So more insurance companies kept popping up, hoping to cash in on this lucrative market. By 1965, President Johnson established Medicare and Medicaid, government-funded health insurance to make it more affordable.
The Harry S. Truman Library at Independence, Missouri is the scene of an historic event. President and Mrs. Johnson and Vice President Humphrey arrive for ceremonies that will make the Medicare bill a part of Social Security coverage.
But the for-profit insurance market didn't slow down. If anything, it sped up. And by now, hospitals wanted a piece of the pie too. Enter for-profit hospitals. And it didn't take long for these new types of money-making hospitals to start taking over the industry. One of the first of these for-profit hospital chains was HCA, which bought their first hospital in 1968. The company actually borrowed the idea from Holiday Inn, the chain that took over the travel industry.
We got the idea to do this thing from seeing what Holiday Inns 10 years before had done in changing basically the travel industry.
Here's how it would work. For-profit hospitals would go into small towns that had one large hospital serving the community, and they would set up shop there. The thought process was that this would generate competition by giving people choices, which meant lower prices and improved care. It sounded like a dream come true, right? The for-profit hospitals told everyone they had better management, better fundraising abilities, and better services than their non-profit competitors. That's how they attracted patients. After all, who wouldn't want that? And it was probably true when they had actual competition. By the mid-80s, 1 out of every 7 hospitals in America was for profits. And now it was time to rake in the dough. There are lots of ways hospitals make money, like receiving donations or specializing in lucrative treatments for things like cancer or cardiac problems. But what you may not know is that most of the revenue comes from people's private and public health insurance. Between the two, hospitals want patients with private insurance more because it pays the most, as opposed to Medicaid patients, which pays the least. Take the Mayo Clinic, for example, which made over $6 billion from private health insurance in 2018 and only around $300 million from Medicaid in the same year. This shows something very important. In this example, a customer with private insurance is worth 18 times more than a customer with public insurance. So if you're running a hospital, you can now divide your customer base into 2 categories: profitable patients and non-profitable patients. You want to maximize the ones that make you the most money, and you want to minimize the ones that make you the least amount of money. And one big way to maximize the amount of profitable patients is the location of your business. Hospitals in wealthier cities make more money than those serving poor patients.
By and large, one of the greatest predictors of how much money a hospital makes is how wealthy the community is in which they're located. Hospitals in wealthy communities often raise a lot of money in philanthropy and have well-insured patients. Hospitals that are predominantly taking care of government-insured patients or poor patients tend to struggle.
But all of these tactics weren't enough. They wanted more. So they moved on to the most effective way for hospitals to make more money: straight up raising prices. And the tried and true way of raising prices? Playing the game of Monopoly. So in the 1990s, individual hospitals started merging together under one giant powerful group. This trend of lumping medical facilities together into chains continued into the 2000s.
First wave actually started in the mid-1990s. Then it took a pause, and then we saw mergers and acquisitions come back with great velocity.
Between 2008 and 2014, over 750 hospital mergers and acquisitions had taken place in the US. That's 125 mergers and acquisitions per year. There were so many mergers throughout this time that in 2018, there were 11.5% fewer community hospitals than there was in 1975. That means there are fewer hospitals today, even though there's way more people to take care of. And it's still happening today. In the past 2 years alone, hospitals have bought 8,000 medical practices. Plus, doctors have been leaving their private practices in droves to become employees for big hospital chains. That basically means small businesses are shutting down to work for large corporations. While some hospitals are making more money than ever before, the number of hospitals overall is dwindling, and the ones that are shutting down are the ones that serve the poorest people. If a company had a monopoly on something like orange juice, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. The company could try to price a carton of orange juice at $100, and then subsequently, everyone would stop buying it. People can live without orange juice. However, monopolizing hospitals that control the price of life-saving medical procedures is a much more powerful monopoly, and the numbers show. The cost of hospital services has increased by over 200% over the past 2 decades. To put that into perspective, if you paid $100 to stitch up a small cut in the year 2000, you would now have to pay $300 for the exact same thing, and it has buried the masses in a lot of debt. Today, unpaid medical bills are the biggest thing collection agencies go after. But with all this extra money, it should at least translate into better care for patients, right? Nope. Yale economist Zach Cooper found that death rates are literally higher in markets where hospitals face less competition, because these hospitals have no skin in the game. People who work in hospitals acquired by the large chain called Prospect Medical Holdings experienced this firsthand. A surgical assistant from the Waterbury Hospital recalled the new management telling them to wash patients with paper towels and only change the bed sheets every 3 days.
Makes me feel like I have to touch him. I don't want to touch him at all, so why don't we just put him in the trash?
Please don't put me in the trash.
As hospitals merge, other healthcare facilities and smaller practices across the US seem to be only left with 2 choices. The first option is to sell out and become a part of the monopolized hospital system. The second alternative is to close their doors for good, just like the effect Walmart had on small shops. And while patients spend their life savings on medical procedures, receive worse care, and have their local hospitals shut down, what is happening to the higher ups at these hospital chains? They are profiting big time. CEOs' wages at major non-profit medical centers rose by 93%, almost doubled from 2005 to 2015. In comparison, the typical healthcare worker's salary increased by only 8% during that same period. So what is the lesson from all of this? It's that you shouldn't let greed get in the way of medical… I'm kidding. The real lesson is, if you want to make more money selling the exact same thing, subsidize it with either loans and government money in the case of universities, or insurance in the case of hospitals. That way, you take the buyer out of the buying process, so your rising profit margins slip right under their noses. Sure, the hospital monopoly is great and all, but if you want to learn more about monopolies, then you should look into Monsanto. Where hospitals monopolize our medical care, Monsanto figured out a genius way to monopolize the very food we eat through some genius tactics. And it just so happens that we have a feature-length 40-minute documentary on Monsanto available right now as a private documentary only to members of this channel. All you have to do is click the join button below, sign up, and you'll get instant access to this knowledge that they will never teach you in business school. Like seriously, you're not gonna find a Monopoly 101 class at Harvard, even though it's a business degree that costs $111,500. This, on the other hand, costs $5 a month. And there's even a refund policy. If you join and don't think it's worth it for whatever reason, you can email me and I will personally give you a refund. There's new private documentaries dropping every month, and they're not gonna be available anywhere else. Click the join button below to watch now.